Our first guest tonight here to discuss the state of the Trump border wall in the wake of the omnibus spending bill, President Trump's reported plan to push the military to fund the construction of that wall, and much more. Joining me, political commentator, best-selling author, Ann Coulter. Ann, great to have you with us. You have been critical of the president of late. Broken-hearted, you described yourself at one point. Now with the wall rising along that fence that you saw there.
They're repainting some rickety fences, Lou, but I mean, if it's not just another scam to keep us saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming. Yeah, he can use the military. Some of us have been saying that forever. He's the commander-in-chief. No legislature, no court can take that away. He has full authority to repel an attack on the border. I mean, even though I was on a tweet storm last night, I got in rather late, and I was a little intemperate in some of my tweets.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry about some of the language. However, I was right on the law. And that is, look, even the War Powers Act, which many say is unconstitutional. Every president, I believe, has said it's unconstitutional. But we needn't get into that. But that is purportedly a restriction on the president's power to deploy military forces. Even that says we can't do anything about a president repelling an attack on the nation. No. That's what we're dealing with here. We're losing more people to heroin and fentanyl overdoses every year than we lost in the entire course of the Vietnam War.
116 a day through 2016, and it's been rising at 54% in most of the major cities across this country since then.
And I would recommend to anyone interested in the topic, I don't usually recommend liberal journalists, but it happens to be a fantastic book.
Be careful here. Be careful.
Sam Quinones's book, Dreamland. Yeah. He was a long time, in fact, I quote him in Adios America. He's a great reporter. He has a great book on the opioid crisis and heroin and fentanyl. And you'll see 98% of the heroin and fentanyl is coming from Mexico. It's a problem of not having a wall on our border.
Well, it's very simple. I mean, it really is simple. And I agree with you about his reporting. But the reality has been with us for too long. That border is where most of the methamphetamines, marijuana, heroin, and cocaine come from.
Yes.
And until we stop it, we are literally deciding that millions of young Americans will be collateral damage to the principles of someone's open border fantasy.
Yes, and meanwhile,
that is our nightmare.
Right, and meanwhile, I mean, people objecting to this, they're fine with, you know, emergency actions to take out Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega, or an emergency bombing of Syria, or emergency, you know, escorting of ships without the president going to Congress. Well, or ISIS.
As I recall, the left was apoplectic at each of those events. Then those
Not all of them.
Well,
not bombing Libya.
Well, I don't want to get
in any event.
And let's focus here. Let's focus on the wall.
This is what the issue is, Lou. Everyone is attacking Trump for picking up.
You're attacking Trump, for crying out loud, day in and day out.
Again, finishing the sentence. You may attack the president when he does not keep his promises. I think that is an appropriate thing to do.
You can attack the president whenever you want to. It's America,
for being wrong on the Constitution is not what I am doing. He is right on the Constitution, the people I am attacking, and that's why all of these actions by the chief executive to go
You have been talking about the president as if he had absolutely broken every promise on the campaign trail.
No, I think I've been quite clear about which promises he has broken. To build a wall and deport illegals. And by the way, I'm glad you're talking to, since you won't let me tell you what the constitutional basis is and how ridiculous the attacks on this are.
Because I have a very good idea, and so does this audience, of what the powers of the United States president are.
Okay, then we'll skip that, and I would like to commend you. And actually, I think this is the problem with Trump keeping his promises on immigration, for having Peter Navarro on. I mean, in the case of the White House, or the trade issue, at the White House, you have Peter Navarro and you have Wilbur Ross. They are fantastic. They are giving the president good advice. When it comes to immigration, there is no one in the White House giving him good advice. Everyone, it is 10 feet deep with people who oppose the wall, who want to amnesty dreamers, and none of that's happening.
Someone has convinced this president that DACA is not a Democratic issue, but one that he concedes from the Democrats. And I happen to agree with you here. Whoever is advising that somehow Hispanics and illegal immigrants will convert suddenly to the Republican Party. Well, first of all, they must drink with Paul Ryan in order to get that delusional.
Or Karl
and they're
Rove.
absolute fools.
Yes.
Okay. So, and by the way, those fools are often funded by the person you mentioned, Karl Rove, and all of his buddies at the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable.
But more important even than the trade issue was obviously the promise to build the wall. He has the authority. He needs to listen to the right people. And I mean, the Washington Post just reported that a Pentagon official says we can't build the wall without congressional approval. The guy's a moron, and you shouldn't be listening to drooling, incontinent morons when you're fulfilling your most crucial...
Who are you calling a moron?
Well, unfortunately, the Washington Post didn't identify the Pentagon official,
source?
though
well,
I'm demanding his name.
There's only one person over there who could make that such a bold statement, one would think. But certainly General Mattis would not, because I'm certain he wouldn't want to.
It was Pentagon official. Who knows?
Yeah.
It could be Jerry Kushner.
Well, he is the one official that...
Because he's running the entire government.
Let's turn to, you called him a shallow, lazy ignoramus, just for the record, and now you seem to be making some sort of accord with him.
No,
before we go too far down...
I called him that during the campaign, and in Trump we trust. That was part of the reason.
And have quoted yourself ever since.
Yes, I have been. No, but that was part of the reason we trusted him. I mean, a switch changed with him. As I described in Chapter 2, yes, we might have wanted a more elegant person to make these arguments. We're voting for him for the policies. And then I realized...
Well, I sure as hell didn't. And millions of other Americans didn't want an elegant...
Okay, again, was halfway through the sentence. And then you realize...
Hurry to the best part.
And then you realize... An elegant person wouldn't have said the things he was saying. It was precisely that he was so coarse that allowed him to make say these incredibly courageous things. He didn't care what Manhattan elites thought of him.
I can't tell if you're coming down for or against coarse, because then he said bravely
as soon as he gets to the White House, suddenly all he wants is the approval of the Manhattan fancy people. He sure didn't care for the 18 months he was running. So the shallow, coarse ignoramus, yes, it was a selling point because he didn't care what people thought of him. Now all he wants is for Goldman Sachs to like him. Yeah, well, I don't know what happened, but that's a different president. I haven't changed.
Approbation complexes are never attractive in anyone. And unfortunately, I believe that there is some truth to the fact that there are those in the White House who would like to guide him toward this liberal fantasy that is a nightmare for America and has proved to be such for our middle class, which has been dwindling for the past 20 years.
Yes.
Under this president, they're starting to grow, and money is starting to come in, and we're starting to see housing prices rise.
Everything gets better with a wall and deportations. Immigration makes everything easier. Entitlements, the drug problem, theft of government services.
Paul Ryan hasn't even started on entitlements, and you must leave some of your venom for him.
Well, Paul Ryan?
Well,
if
you would.
I will. My venom toward him is, instead of bringing in lots of immigrants who then bring in their elderly relatives who immediately go on Medicare and Social Security and then tell Americans you have to tighten your belt, we're raising the retirement age. How about don't raise the retirement age, but limit Social Security and Medicare to Americans?
Well, that'd be radical and probably unconstitutional in the view of Javier Becerra.
Everything is easier if you fix immigration.
You know, I find everything easier with this president in the White House doing his very level best.
He needs a few other people in the White House who don't oppose everything he said about immigration during the campaign.